Okay, so this area right here, I already warned Justin Seal if he's on it, is an area on our 390 project, and it's actually a TxDOT maintenance yard, and we're not actually proposing a pond there, but I just needed an area to play and do a little demo on what these tools can do. So I've got this pond sort of partially built to hopefully speed this up, and I'm hoping to only take about 30 minutes of your time today, but I think these tools are pretty handy, and I'm not sure, maybe different teams are using them. I haven't seen anyone else using them. I know our group has used them a little bit, so I just wanted to let y'all know they're there. And if you have any other questions, you can reach out to me, or maybe you're already a pro at this. So we'll get started. So basically, like I said, it's more for areas where you have to do a lot of just special grading and different slopes and stuff, a little more complicated. But it allows you to basically draw features in and then assign them a profile and then gather all those elements and create a terrain out of them. So um, what I have here, what I've started here is a detention basin that has the top of bank going all the way around. And then the outfall would be, there's a channel here. So the outfall would be somewhere in here. Um, and then we would be tying back to the existing grade at most of the bank locations in this somewhat of a pretend example. Um, but what I would do is I'm doing that. So a lot of us have gone through different Bentley trainings, and every time we go through one that shows an example where they're doing a feature like this, it's always kind of funny to the drainage group. They always draw a pond, and then they just draw a bank line, and then they draw a toe slope line, and they say, okay, that's the pond. And I always tell our team, like, you can't really do that anywhere in Texas, at least, because it's just going to fill up with water and never drain. So that's not how we design things. And sometimes the Bentley people aren't even able to answer the questions we raised about it. But there are good tools within ORD, so that allow you to do those things, and they work pretty well. So I'll go ahead and get started. But for this one, what you need to get started is to have a 2DC file, of course, to do your work in. And then you need to load the existing terrain. And then all your elements you draw, you need to use the geometry tools, which you're probably in the habit of doing anyways. But from there, I'll show you some handy tricks. So here I've drawn a little what's called a pilot channel at the base of the pond. And this would be where I'd put the outlet. So I'd want to look, say, at my elevations that we're going to drain to. So here we have a 317 contour. And so once you draw some of these elements in using the geometry tools, just basic tools here, what you can do is go into each element, open up the profile model, and then so once if you have an idea of what you want to grade, so that elevation out there was 317. So I'm going to say I'm going to um, pretend I'm going to start my pond at 317.5. So you can use under geometry the tools for element profiles, and actually, let's see, profile. This one here, I'll show you a few of these as we work through these examples. But we'll start with profile line between points. And then as long as your civil AccuDraw is turned on, you can snap to where you want to start the profile. And hit enter. And I want that to be at 317.5, so I'm just going to do that. come in here and click. It's got those locked, so it's going to do that. And then you can say, I want to slope this channel to grade the water or to drain the water at a decent slope, maybe 0.5% is pretty good for this type of feature. So I'm just going to eyeball it and come to the end of that line and go here. And then some of these tools, and I can't keep track of which, when you do those steps, it makes that the active profile. This one, it does not, it looks like. So the other thing is you need to make sure the profile you draw, if you kind of hover over it and make it active. So now that element has the elevations that I want to have. And then, so for these pilot channel type of things, like say I've got these elements offset to be the outside of the pilot channel. I'm gonna make this a 6:1 slope. So there's another tool here that I'm just gonna hopefully walk you through and show you some of the tools that I find handy. I'm sure there's some other ones in here, but this one would be under element profiles, profile by slope from element. So I can take that, and then you just kind of follow the prompts on all these. So locate elements profile. I want to give a profile to this, and then I'm going to hit reset because that's the only thing I want to profile. And then I'm going to make this, instead of it's prompting me with what slope to put it at. So I'm going to say it has a 6:1 slope, which is a 16.67%. Locate the reference element, which will be the one I just profiled here. Click again. Asking if I want it to apply to all of it. So just click through, and the trick is to make sure you click all the way through, because sometimes I forget that it still has things it's asking me, because it seems to ask a million questions for every step. And I'll sometimes click away and then it won't have done what I thought it did. So I can check it by hovering over that element. And now we see that it's drawn a profile. If you remember, we started this one at 317.5. And because we applied that 6:1 slope, 3 feet offset, so now it's half a foot higher. It's at 318 at the beginning. And so we would do the same thing for the other side. I would just click through that again. Same 16.67%. That's what I want. Okay, and now that should have the profile to it. Another profiling tool I use on here a lot is just by constant elevation. So profile by constant elevation. I'm going to use that for this little notch that I created at the end of the channel. I'm going to click on that, and then hit reset because that's the only one I want to profile right now. I'm going to enter the elevation I want, which will be 318 for this one. Click through until it's done. And I'm going to highlight it to make sure it worked. Mm-hmm. And it's got this one here. And that thing I said at the beginning, sometimes it makes the profile, but it doesn't make it active. So we need to, this is one of those tools. So I need to hover over it, make it active. And I need to check that it did it for the other two. Okay. And I'm just gonna assign an elevation to this one we did. This one should be 319.64. Just think I wrote these down beforehand so I could try to go fast. So the last part of the pond I'm gonna fill out is this area. So as I was saying, we want to draw the horizontal elements with these tools. So I'm gonna finish connecting the sides of the basin. You can, since I'm usually just wanting contours, I know roadway is a lot more like intricate with their feature definitions and it matters more. For me, I'm usually just trying to get the contours out of a basin. So, but you can apply a feature definition to it if that is something you're interested in. It's probably a good practice. So right now I have it set to just ditch top front because they don't have that many options. So I'm going to connect this line. Then I'm going to create with these sharp angle. One thing that's not good in grading is you don't want to have any sharp angles come out with your contours. Otherwise you probably need to adjust some of your radius. So I'm going to add a radius between these two lines. So I'm going to do that with the arc between elements tool, simple arc. If I'll try 100 feet radius. This one, you just click between the elements. So I clicked that one and then I'm going to locate the second element, click, enter the parameters, click again. Do I want to trim it both ways? Yes, I do. It has completed that action. I'm going to do that with this one here. And to complete this toe of the basin, well, one, I'm going to look at a lot of times. So in this circumstance, we may want to match the existing ground for part of it, and we may want to kind of berm up and create a higher top of bank on this side. That's something that we possibly would want to do in these situations. So we'll look at this profile. So I'm going to set this top of bank over here to be at 324 on this side and then match the existing ground on that side. So I'm going to go back to this tool and the elevation I want, 324. I think the rest of these profiles use existing ground, so I'm going to hit the existing ground so it'll tie in with whatever that profile is. Make sure that's active. Then another option that will frequently be used, and we'll use it for this one, would be to use just the existing terrain as your profile. So for that, you can open up the element, click on it, and set that as active. So now we have this one with the existing terrain as the profile, which I can probably do for this arc as well. I'm gonna make the active terrain the profile there. And then if we're thinking about it, so this one will, this element, this element here needs to go from the existing terrain up to 324 here. So we're going to open that up, do a little bit of a custom one there. Can do that with a straight line. Start here and go to, I can use the AccuDraw snaps are helpful. Click it here, 224. It's also pretty forgiving. Like it doesn't have to be, if I were to put that in as 323.8, it would still run and it would still create contours. It would just maybe not be quite as clean, but I find it gives pretty good results, and it's easier to work with than what Geopack was for their grading tools, in my opinion. So finally, I'm going to finish this off by completing this toe. Do that, I had to do an offset of the top of bank. So as I do areas like this, I do the math in my head, so I know what the top of bank in general was around 324. My lowest toe is going to be around 318. I say in my head, but what I mean is with the calculator. So um, 324 minus 318. So 6. I think when I actually did it to get it to round up with the rest, I assumed about 7 feet deep, and I didn't want to be any steeper than or any. I was shooting for 6-to-1 slope, so I think I just ended up rounding to 45, and that way I'd try to have at least 6-to-1 slopes everywhere. So I'm gonna do an offset of this top of bank to get down to the toe, and do that at 45. No mirror. And then create, actually do that again with this arc. So the profiles don't come down with it when I do these offsets of elements. So now I've got this pilot channel, so I could do some floor grading, would be another thing that I do. And I've already done that with the rest of the elements. So I'll just do it with these elements that I created. Tool for that, I would use that same tool we used with profile slope by element. And I would click on, see if I can do multiple. This one, this one, this one. And instead of 16.67%, I'm just going to do 0.5% for my floor grading of the pond. So, sure, if that worked, let me check. That did not work because I didn't follow those. I was not careful about following those prompts in order. So I need to try that again. Profile. as well. Reset reference element, that one, 5%. Okay, that worked because now we have a profile for these. So sometimes when I do it that way, I need to check that it actually covered the whole element. So it did. We got a profile for the entire element on that one. And that one. This one it didn't. So I'll show you the final tool I use a lot is under profile lines, or no, under element profiles. Nope, not that one either. Complex by geometry, this one. Profile complex by PI. So I can come in here. It only went part of the way because it was projecting out. I can kind of guess what the rest of that toe of slope will be, and it will probably be good enough. So I'm just gonna draw the line over what we have and then finish off the element. That way the whole element is profiled. And then I'm gonna make that active. Okay. Now I'm just gonna browse through and make sure everything I've drawn has a profile. Oh, the last thing I might do, this one we gave a special elevation, and so it's not tying into existing here, so I might draw one more line just to make things come back to existing. And I'm gonna go into the profile mode and assign the existing ground to that element. Okay. So I think I've assigned profiles to every element I've drawn here. So I'm gonna show you how you would create a terrain out of all these now. We'd go into terrain and then from elements, and then you would start. These default settings are fine, and I would just start selecting the elements that you want to include. I should probably have just turned everything off and grabbed it all at once, but and then I'll give it some kind of name. And then let's see, follow the prompts again. So reset when done. Click, click, and then it creates the pond for you. And then if you want to see it, I usually like to see contours instead of triangles. So we can go to the Explorer, which actually I already had it open. So this is the one we have in our file. Let me go properties on it. And then I'm going to turn off triangles, display the contours I want to show. there we go. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good, and it just takes a little cleaning up and iterations to get things worked out. But tools are pretty easy to use, and like I said, I'm not really sure how much they're being utilized all around. Maybe y'all are using them a bunch, and I just haven't seen anyone else use them. But I thought they're pretty handy and make special grading fairly simple. So I hope y'all find it helpful. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But for now, does anyone have any questions about what I've shown? All right. If nobody has anything, Chris said I could go ahead and let everyone out early and give you, give you maybe 30 minutes back your day. So thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
You bet.
Thank you, Eric.